Simple past and past continuous. Past continuous you can call past progressive. So the lesson today I would like to share between two activity that happened in the past. One activity was happening and one more activity happened that is interrupted. For example, I was having lunch when I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. So, in this sentence, there are two clauses. So the first clause, I was having lunch is a, past continuous. So remember, past continuous was happening. Okay. So I was having lunch, happened first. Okay. And what happened when I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes? So I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes is the second action that happened. Yeah. I was having lunch. I was having lunch. I was eating. Then, I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. So the first activity was having lunch. The second activity that happened spilled a cup of coffee. If I don't want to say I was having lunch when I spilled a cup of coffee, I can say while I was having lunch, I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. So, if I want to say, while I was having lunch, I use while. So, I use while plus past continuous. And when we use with past simple. And remember, past continuous was happening first, and then past simple happened. So, past simple interrupt past continuous. Again, while I was having lunch happened first, I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. So I use while with past continuous. I don't use when here. We cannot say while I was having lunch when I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. We cannot say like this. If we use while, we don't use when. If we use when, we don't use while. So most of these are correct. If you like to use when, you can say I was having lunch when I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. But if you want to say while, you can say while I was having lunch, I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. And both of these sentence, if you don't want to say I was having lunch when I spilled up, if you don't want to say I was having lunch when I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. You can say when I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. You comma. I was having lunch. And this one also, you can say I was having lunch. Sorry. You can say while I was having lunch, I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. So you put while first you comma. But if you say I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes while I was having lunch, you don't use comma. So we have alternative way to say all right. Here, this is the alternative way. When I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes, I was having lunch. So even past continuous, you put at the end, it means past continuous, it was happening first. Then you spill a cup of coffee on my clothes. I was having lunch when I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes. That we can say, when I spilled a cup of coffee on my clothes, I was having lunch. The example, I was driving to the airport to pick up a friend, but I got a flat tire. This time I don't use while or when. So still, the past continuous still happen for. So I was driving to the airport, driving, and then my car, got a flat tire. Yeah. So yeah. driving happening first. Oh, an example, I was studying for an important test when the lights went out. So I was studying, it was happening first. Yeah. Then, the lights went out. Yeah. So was reading, was studying, and then it was dark, because electrics or the lights went out. An example, while I was walking down the street, I found a wallet with lots of money. So the first activity, I was walking down the street. The second activity, I found a wallet with lots of money. Next example, I was getting off a bus when I slipped and I fell on the sidewalk. So the first activity, I was getting off. I was getting off the bus for, yeah. And the second activity that happened when I slipped and fell on the sidewalk. Yeah. So if I don't want to say I was getting off a bus, I can say when I slipped and fell on the sidewalk, comma, I was getting off a bus. Yeah. So remember, you want to express the activity that was happening first, you past continuous, and the second activity that happened while the activity one activity was happening, you use past tense. Yeah. So one more time, if you don't want to say when, you say while I was getting off a bus, comma, I slipped and fell on the sidewalk. So after watching this video, I hope you understand very well how to use past continuous that we call past progressive and simple past with when and while to express your idea, to express the activity that you want to say or write. Thank you for watching. See you next video.